DockTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
Welcome to DockTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here. I'm glad you joined us today. We're going to have a great show. Today I have a friend and colleague, Dr. Brent Meyer. We're going to talk about implants with beef cattle. Stick around, more to come right here from Iowa State University.
No one plans to get sick or injured, but when life happens, it's important you and your family are protected. Kansas Farm Bureau health plans are there to provide continued health care coverage to meet your needs. Choose from a broad range of individual and family plans. And if you're over 65, we have options for you too. Learn more at kfbhealthplans.com or contact a Farm Bureau Financial Services agent near you.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome to DockTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here. Today we have a guest, Dr. Brent Meyer. Dr. Meyer is a veterinarian. He is a double graduate of Iowa State University, maybe triple graduate of Iowa State University, actually. Yeah. Triple graduate. And so somebody that I was in veterinary school at the same time with here at Iowa State, done a lot of stuff with beef cattle production medicine, beef cattle production, located up in Northwest Iowa. And it's just great to have someone here, and appreciate you being here, Brent.
Appreciate it, Dan. Appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully your audience will learn a few things today.
Yeah. So let's start out. We're going to talk about steroid implants. And let's just start out talking about how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. So we get that question quite a bit. What do implants do? And I guess you would keep it simple. What I tell producers is that those implants that we administer to the cattle, what we're doing is we're increasing protein development or muscle tissue development, at the same time decreasing fat deposition. And so the result of all that through the payout period in the feed yard is to enhance our lean muscle growth. So we're going to get more frame on that animal, more skeletal frame will happen, and more weight in a shorter period of time. And so that's kind of what our goal is with those implants. But there's other things that they do for the producer as well as the consumer, actually downstream. Number one is that we're going to increase our average daily gain, and we're also going to improve our feed efficiency, which ultimately will increase our carcass weight and our carcass yield. And why is that important? Well, if you look at, ranking cost factors of feeding cattle, feed cost of gain is actually ranked number 2 on that list. And so if we can do something with the cattle to decrease our cost of gain, we are going to improve our profitability and reduce our production costs by doing that. The other thing that we often see is we save environmental resources, whether that be land use and water use with the implants, because we're improving our feed efficiency in that aspect. And all that trickles down to cost savings on the producer and the consumer. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do with growth hormone implants in the feed yard segment.
Yeah, and you know, when we start to talk about sustainability and natural resources, there is no one single tool more important to the economic or biological efficiency of a bovine than a steroid implant. I mean, to me.
Yeah, absolutely correct. And we'll cover that probably in the next section or two here on, you know, what do we get for weight and efficiency and average daily gain improvements. We'll cover that here shortly, but that's absolutely correct. Go to Dordt College once in a while and speak to the class about sustainability, and it really lights come on with these students. You know, when you compare a non-implanted steer or heifer to an implanted, correctly implanted steer or heifer, looking at the feed savings, the water savings, the greenhouse gas situation. So yeah, it's, if you look at you know as well as I do, Dan, that this implanting cattle in the feed yard, that's the number one return on your investment you can do, the number one procedure you can do with feed yard cattle. So yeah, definitely something to consider.
Cool. Well, we're going to take a break, folks. When we come back, more with Dr. Brent Meyer. Thanks for watching Doc Talk, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Hey folks, welcome to our Cattle First Minute. I'm Dr. Dan here, and thanks to Beringer Ingelheim Vet Medica for sponsoring this. When we think about vaccination and vaccinating calves in the fall, or vaccinating your cows in the fall, or summer, or spring, it doesn't matter what time of year, we've got to treat vaccines responsibly. Because if you don't, that modified live vaccine becomes a modified dead vaccine. We want to make sure we keep it out of the sunlight. We want to make sure that we keep it cool. We want to make sure that you don't mix up more vaccine that you're going to utilize than what you would utilize in an hour. And when you do, make sure you put it in that cooler that keeps it dark and keeps it cool. All of these things, understanding that the syringes have to be clean so that these products work well. Putting a vaccine that is not efficacious into an animal means you vaccinate the animal, but you don't immunize the animal. And understanding that there's a difference between immunization and vaccination is important for Cattle First.
KFRM is one of the largest farm radio stations in the nation, dedicated to informing and entertaining rural listeners from northern Oklahoma to southwestern Nebraska. You can catch KFRM in many ways, of course, 550 on the AM dial, streaming at kfrm.com, or on your smartphone by going to the TuneIn Radio app, or on Ag AM in Kansas on Tuesdays and Facebook every day of the week. KFRM, tune us in. You'll be glad you did.
No one plans to get sick or injured. But when life happens, it's important you and your family are protected. Kansas Farm Bureau health plans are there to provide continued health care coverage to meet your needs. Choose from a broad range of individual and family plans. And if you're over 65, we have options for you too. Learn more at kfbhealthplans.com or contact a Farm Bureau Financial Services agent near you.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to western Kansas.
ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need. From prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply. This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to Doc Talk. Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dr. Brent Meyer, and we're in Iowa. I'm at Iowa State, and Dr. Meyer is up in Northwest Iowa. Dr. Meyer is a technical services veterinarian for Merck Animal Health. which allows him to amplify his message across the country. He's had a very successful practice career in Northwest Iowa, and now he's sharing his experience with us and other veterinarians and producers. So thankful to get you here on the show, Brent. Let's talk about what steroid implants are going to do for the animal.
Yeah, we certainly can. We kind of touched a little bit on it there in the first segment, but if you look at comparing a non-implanted steer or heifer, we'll call those negative controls. We've done studies where we look at that compared to a re-implant program where they will get a initial implant on arrival, and then, let's say 120 days later, they'll get re-implanted with a terminal implant. And it was also in that study comparing the long payout implants that we have on the market right now, that 180, 220 day type implants, which we can talk about a little bit later. So if you compare those three treatments, control and those implant programs, what you can expect on average over the negative control is a 23% improvement in average daily gain, a 10% increase in dry matter intake, and about a 10% reduction in feed efficiency as a whole. So that's the average. Sometimes it's higher, maybe just a little bit lower sometimes, but as a whole, that's what we're looking for on those implants. So that's all cool and dandy, but what's all mean for pounds? Because producers can get paid on pounds going out. And if you follow those cattle through, steers and heifers are going to be a little bit different, obviously. So the steers, we're looking at 85 pounds of hot carcass weight advantage with the implant program versus nothing. And on heifers, you're looking at about a 60-pound hot carcass weight advantage. If you have producers that are selling live right off the feed yard, then steers, we're looking at about 125 pounds of live weight addition with the implant program, and heifers are going to be a little less, about 83 pounds of live weight. So you can see that's tremendous amount of pounds that we can take advantage of, at the same time decreasing our cost of gain. And so this is also very important for producers that are considering or in a all natural or hormone free type market, is they need to take those pounds lost into account to make sure that they get their premiums covered on the backside, because make sure that they're getting that covered, because that's a lot of pounds and weight that we don't want to miss out on in those markets. But that's kind of the performance benefits we're getting with those implant programs.
Well, you're talking 150, 300 bucks a head by the time you get done looking at lost performance and decreased pounds of carcass. This is, if you're going to participate in one of those programs, you better hedge on the conservative side, or you could really take a bath.
Yeah, I've had discussions in eastern Iowa on some feed yards, and they were getting $150 a head premium on some steers, and that was not covering what they were losing on their lost income on their implants. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind. That's the average performance benefit we're getting by using these good steroid implants.
Perfect. Well, folks, we're time for another break. We got Brent Meyer here, Merck Animal Health, Dr. Dan here at Iowa State. We're both here in Iowa, and glad you joined us today. We'll be right back after these messages.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for that grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm, so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, and we're glad to answer and work with you.
ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need. From prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
just finished a fantastic continuing education wet lab with Dr. Cooper Williams, and he is the most fantastic ultrasonographer on the planet as far as I can tell. And just the hands-on part of this was great. Inspiring to go back and bone up on the anatomy and, learning the structures and finding the structures. So looking forward to that. The whole idea of regenerative medicine is really exciting to me. It's something that, because I live close to Dr. Arava, going through the steps of it and helping develop the PRP kit and the PRF kit. And it's been really fun to see it now, come into play here. And it's just a very exciting field. The stem cells, Corey and I recently did a case of stem cells with PRP, and it's just a really fun and effective treatment option. It's really nice to have that option of regenerative medicine. Enzo Discoveries is really exciting to follow because they are on the edge of it all and making it a reality. These kits that they've produced are so practical, easy to use. I think 2019 is just going to be an amazing year for them, just going to take off and branching into different markets, and it's really one to watch for sure.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, Dr. Dan here. Welcome back to DockTalk. We're here with Dr. Brent Meyer. And Dr. Meyer is a Iowa State veterinary alumni, lives in Northwest Iowa, great veterinarian, works for Tech Service, Merck Animal Health, and we're just pleased to have him here to share information with us on steroid implants. So Dr. Brent, when we get to that point, now you're working with your veterinarian or your nutritionist, how do you start to set that program up?
Yeah, good question. And you started out with it right, Dan. Work with your veterinarian and nutritionist to get this set up, and preferably both, in the same room. So each one has something to add to the discussion. Get along, contrary to what people think sometimes. But I tend to kind of break it down, simplify it, and ask 3 questions with the producer. Number 1, is your goal selling the most live weight off the farm as you possibly can get? Without any regard to any kind of specs. Number 2, do you want to kind of have a kind of an equilibrium situation, or you want decent performance but still want to hit some specs as far as quality grade? And then the third option would be, I'm just going after quality grade. I have that market, I have a niche, so I'm going to sacrifice a little performance on the cattle. So those are 3 quick, classifications that I would look at on doing that. And within that, so if you're looking at selling pounds, that's all you want. You can be really aggressive on your implant program, whether it's the initial implant or especially the terminal implant on those cattle. The second part, where you want kind of a combination, you can be moderately aggressive with those implants. And then, of course, the last one, you want to be less aggressive. And last I knew, if you look at all the implants on the market, there's like 500 different choices or situations you can mix up here. So that's where the vet nutritionist comes into play. They have understanding of the payout of the implant and what classic cattle you want to put it in. The other thing you want to look at when you do this is the type of cattle. And so if you have, for example, the Holstein type cross or Holstein cattle or high continental type cattle that have large frame size already, if you get real aggressive on those implant programs, you can add more frame than really you want. And now you have a problem with the hot carcass weight's too much. They can't fit in the rail, that sort of thing. So take that in consideration. The other thing you want to consider is labor and facilities. That's where the long payout implants come into play, where you give them once and they're done. Yep. So that's definitely an issue. That's more common and more popular because of that issue. Facilities, labor, it's just really easy, and those implants work. And so that's another issue. The other question I get is drop in choice or quality grade. If you get real aggressive, like that first example I had with the implants, you can expect about a 3 to 10% point drop in choice with those cattle. But if you feed them to the same endpoint, that kind of goes away. But you can kind of play that. So if you have some good black cattle that are going to grade 90% choice, you can actually be pretty aggressive on them sometimes because you're not going to drop that down to where it's going to affect your grid situation. So that's kind of where you kind of want to start getting your implant program protocol set up.
Well, you must have rehearsed this because you hit perfect timing for us to take a break and then come back and kind of wrap up and tie this all together. Folks, this is some really important information. When you sit down at the end of the day, if you aren't using a steroid implant and you aren't performing a strategy, these are real dollars sitting on the table. So let's take a break. Let's come back with Dr. Brent Meyer here on DockTalk. We're sure glad you joined us.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to western Kansas.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need. From prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
This segment is brought to you by the Beef Quality Assurance Program and the Kansas Beef Council, improving animal care and beef safety for more than 20 years.
Hey folks, welcome back to DockTalk. Dr. Dan Thomson here at Iowa State University, and we have teleported in Dr. Brent Meyer from Northwest Iowa, and he's a friend and a colleague, a great veterinarian. So glad to have him on the show to spend time with us. And we're talking about steroid implants, Brent. And when we talk a lot about implant procedures, but it's important.
Yep, absolutely. I mentioned that in the first segment. If you look at the procedures we do or the products we put into feed yard cattle, the implant is the number one procedure we can do to get return on our investment. You look at vaccines, dewormers, they all have a part, but implant procedure is it. So if we're looking at, okay, if I implant these cattle correctly, do a good quality job doing that, I'm looking at 85 pounds carcass weight on the backside, or 125 pounds live weight. If I'm missing implants or putting in partial implants or being, dirty on that end where, the sanitation is not good and we're getting abscessed implants, now my return on my investment starts going away pretty quickly. So you're spending dollars on the implant at the time, you really want to protect that. And so what we want to look at is proper placement. We want to get that implant underneath the skin, not in the cartilage, between the veins and arteries in the ear. So proper placement, they always say the middle third of that ear is where we want to put that implant. There's other options if there's ear tag holes or whatever, because you're a veterinarian to do that, or nutritionist to find a different option on that. Head restraint's huge. We don't want the heads flapping around for safety of the person administering the implant and the cattle itself. Make sure the ears are clean. There's a sharp needle. Disinfectant, huge. Use those trays. They have sponges in there to clean that needle off. One of the common things we'll see at processing, people get in a hurry. This should be a rate limiting steps, slow down. If guys are in a hurry and they skip off that year, a lot of times they don't go back and wipe that needle off, and then they go right back in the year, and now you just drug in manure into there, and now you got an abscess, and it's kicking out the implant later on. And so all that you really got to pay attention to reduce implant defects. You really should, hit that greater than 95%, particularly 98% good implant placement is where we want to have that. And so it's just really important to pay attention to that. So there's some things you want to look at. And, disinfectants are out there that you can make yourself. Chlorhexadine's a good one, 16 ounces per gallon of water, and we're good to go. So definitely pay attention to those issues.
Well, it's just been fantastic how they work, what to expect, how to design a program based on your goals, and then how to do it correctly. I couldn't ask for a much better show, and it's a huge impact, and I just appreciate what you do.
Yeah, appreciate it, Dan.
So thanks to Dr. Brent Meyer. Remember, always work with your local veterinarian, and if you want to find out what we do at DockTalk, you can find us on the web at www.doctalktv.com. I'm Dr. Dan Thomson here with Dr. Brent Meyer at Iowa State University, and we'll see you down the road.
DockTalk is brought to you by Merck Animal Health, the science of healthier animals.
No one plans to get sick or injured. But when life happens, it's important you and your family are protected. Kansas Farm Bureau health plans are there to provide continued health care coverage to meet your needs. Choose from a broad range of individual and family plans. And if you're over 65, we have options for you too. Learn more at kfbhealthplans.com or contact a Farm Bureau Financial Services agent near you.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Join Ag AM in Kansas, everyone, Monday through Friday mornings on local stations throughout the state of Kansas, and every day on your favorite social media. Monday kicks off with Dr. Dan Thomson on DockTalk, as he's joined by leading veterinarians and nutritionists in food animal production. They discuss current production challenges and tips on how to deal and prepare for those challenges. Tuesdays on Farm Factor, it is our friends here at KFRM Radio with interviews from top experts in agriculture. Wednesday, it is a little of Kansas history with Deb Goodrich on Around Kansas. Thursday, Britton Rucker brings us Ag Etc. This day is filled with agricultural research and ag happenings around the Midwest, including our new Young Leaders in Ag segment. We end the week with Authentic Ag and updates from your local checkoff programs. Make sure to check your local listings or like us on Facebook and Twitter at Ag AM in Kansas and on YouTube at Farming Unlimited TV so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching.